All right, here we go. Thank you everyone for being here tonight and being on time. We really appreciate it. As with all of our sessions at the volunteer conference, we're going to start off with a land acknowledgement. So we begin by acknowledging that although we are meeting virtually, we are all on land that has been inhabited by Indigenous people for thousands of years. In particular, we acknowledge that Special Olympics Ontario office is located on the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and most recently the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. This land is governed by the Dish with One Spoon Covenant between the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and the Confederacy of the Ojibwe and Allied Nations. This covenant is an agreement to share, work, and protect this land together in harmony. Today, this meeting place is still home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work, live, and play on this land. So thank you all again for attending our unified session this evening. So as we build back to in-person programming, Unified is going to be a large piece of that. And hopefully the session will shed some light on what Unified is, how we have been utilizing Unified programming in Ontario up until this point, and where we look to go with it in the future. So for those of you who might not be familiar with Unified Sport is a competition that combines athletes both with and without intellectual disabilities on the same sports team. So the idea of this is athletes competing together as equal on the same team, competing towards a common goal. Sorry, we have people coming in here. So again, Special Olympics unified sport, lots of benefits to this, which we're going to go into in a moment, but Special Olympics has traditionally been very, very successful at providing those sport opportunities for athletes with intellectual disabilities. Unified sport provides us an opportunity to really enhance our footprint in the local community and let people know that Special Olympics is happening in their community and what we're all about by bringing in those participants without intellectual disabilities into the fold and participating on the same sporting fields as our athletes. So it's really a big advocacy and awareness piece, and it's really been a huge program in our school programs over the past many years. And that's really been the driving force of unified programs at Special Olympics Ontario. So benefits of unified sport, these are more opportunities of inclusion, a continuum of participation, new pool of volunteers and donors. This is specifically pointing towards those unified partners that are coming to participate in the sport and getting, maybe in some settings such as university and colleges, which we'll talk about later, their first experience with Special Olympics and really getting to know what we're all about. Access to facilities, we'll talk about on the next slide, some of our different unified programs, partnership programs, and how those have really expanded the opportunities for our athletes. And again, as I just mentioned on the previous slide, really deepening that community connection and awareness by expanding beyond our traditional roots of just providing the traditional sporting opportunities. So where are unified programs in Ontario right now, or where have they been over the past few years? Really, our primary driver of unified programs up until this point has been school programs, and most specifically in secondary schools. So as some of you might know, secondary school programs is a competition program, school championships program, where athletes compete in 5 different sports and move on to provincial championships at the end of the year. At each of these competitions, we offer both traditional divisions, so athletes only athletes with intellectual disabilities, alongside with a division for unified participants. So that's again athletes with and without ID. These have been a huge success in schools. It's really been a way to bring those special education students into the fold. And really drive that whole school engagement by tapping into leadership programs at high schools and having them help host events, as well as partner in the unified programs and compete alongside their peers. Partner programs, post-secondary institutions, that's something that we were building up until the pandemic. We had about a 3-year run of post-secondary school unified programs, and what those programs look like were on-campus uh, intramural programs. So our goal was if a university offered a men's and a women's or a co-ed intramural league, we would like to see a unified league along with it. So just like any post-secondary student would sign up for Thursday night basketball, they would be able to sign up for a unified division as well. So we would go into one of our stronger programs at the University of Western Ontario, and we would partner with the local community council. And on Sunday afternoons, the athletes from London would come in and play a weekly intramural basketball game with the students from Western University. So this was a huge success, especially at Western. So much so that when the pandemic hit, they continued to do virtual unified events, which were more social based. And that momentum really carried that program through the pandemic. And as we're looking to restart that program in the coming year. So that's really exciting. And we actually, just before the pandemic, I think in February of 2020, we hosted a provincial unified basketball tournament where we had participation from about 15 post-secondary institutions that sent unified teams to London to compete for the provincial championship. So that was really exciting, and we're looking forward to getting the momentum back in those settings as well, because like I mentioned earlier, this is a great driver for new volunteers, which is definitely a theme of our conference this week, is getting volunteers back into the game. Partner programs. So we've developed several provincial sport organization partnership programs, and those partner programs uh, will offer unified competitions embedded in their already existing provincial competitions. So if a sports organization is offering a canoe kayak meet, they would have a unified division slotted into their competition as well. That was another successful program where Unified was really well accepted. The athletes loved being part of the generic club, and the clubs loved having the athletes, as it really added to the culture of their sports club. Municipal partner programs. This is a newer area for Unified. We partner with various municipalities to run some of our youngest programs like Active Start and Fundamentals. And in some smaller communities, there might not be the numbers to run an Active Start program for traditional athletes with intellectual disabilities. So we can run that program. We can get the municipality to run that program as a unified program. They can bring in their siblings and friends. And really that contributes to that greater idea of inclusiveness that we're striving for in these programs. Okay. So what does unified look like right now? So as I mentioned, this picture is from the University of Toronto basketball, a unified team. And this team went to Ohio State to compete against other unified basketball teams from around North America, and they ended up winning the championship. And one of the coolest things about this program was just seeing how the athletes from the University of Toronto and the Special Olympics athletes from the Scarborough basketball team really developed some lifelong or long-lasting friendships throughout this 3-day trip that continued on after. So again, we can really expand on our pillar of advocacy and awareness for our athletes through programs like this. So going forward, we really need to restart and reinvigorate our unified programs. And again, we're going to go back to starting with where we have seen the most success in schools. And over the pandemic, we found it was very challenging, and we talked about this a little bit in our school programs uh, session last night, to get those unified programs up and running to the same level they were um, before the pandemic, even though we were still seeing huge participation numbers in the traditional programs that we're offering in schools. And the reason behind this, as you might have guessed, is the students in the mainstream classes are stuck in their class. They're cohorted with all the cohort stuff that we've had to deal with COVID for safety, and it wasn't feasible to mix those classes together. So we really want to get this program back up and running to where it was, and we're looking to sort of light the fire underneath Unified with our Unified Champion Schools program. So we touched on this a little bit last night in the school programs session. What is Unified Champion School? This is a recognition program that promotes accessibility, inclusivity, and integration. There will eventually be programs built specifically for elementary, secondary, and our post-secondary school programs, but we're launching in September our secondary school Unified Champion Schools program. So what does it mean to be a unified champion school? We have lots of schools that are doing really great things for Special Olympics athletes, and we want to recognize them. So a lot of these schools are already doing a lot of the things that we're setting out here. But what we really envision is schools looking at these options that we're laying out for them and saying, okay, we already do 3 of these. If we do, the 4th one, then we can be a unified champion school. So it's a recognition program, it's a banner program, but there's also some prizes and awards that go along with the recognition for schools that are fulfilling these different pillars. So you can see this slide here that there's 4 different what we call pillars or milestones, and one of them is sport and recreation, the other is social, sustainability, and advocacy and awareness. So in order to become a unified champion, a school would be we would look for a school to complete a task within each milestone category. And there will be different recognition levels for how many tasks are completed. But in order to be a unified champion school, you really need to hit each of those pillars. So this is what it will look like. So, a unified member, there's recognition on the website. Then we have gold, silver, and bronze levels for unified champions. And there'll be banners with recognition, prize packs. And then if you're a gold unified champion, you'll be entered in a draw for a chance to win a free registration at the school championships that year. So our vision is for this to be designed to be run by educators alongside students, promoting that engagement and empowerment. And we want to go over in the next few slides what those milestones are going to look like and what those options are. So right here we have our first milestone, which is sport and recreation. So this one is pretty par for the course for what a lot of schools have already been doing. So we'd like to see having at those local competitions next year, our hometown games, having that unified team participate in the local qualifier. That's one way to do it. You can compete and run unified practices in schools for more than one sports season. So as we mentioned earlier, we have 5 sports in schools. Implement the SOO Unified Physical Education program at your school, host or volunteer at a school champs qualifier or a Special Olympics sport festival. That's for our elementary school students, and have at least one coach complete our unified coach training, which is forthcoming for the next school year. So the idea is not to say you need to do all of these to become recognized, but the idea again is to give lots of options. And also there will be an opportunity for educators to give feedback and be able to suggest or submit things that they've done in these pillars that might qualify. And I'm sure that they likely will, based on the effort that our educators put into their programs. Social. So this is a newer one for schools. This would be a non-sport related activity. So a movie night or game night, a Special Olympics Unified Club could be a part of the school extracurricular activities. Unified members at a varsity or intramural team cheering on their peers. So that could be, bringing out the Special Olympics Unified team to that football game and getting involved in the school spirit. Organizing field trips with unified field trips and running academic related things at lunch or after school study time. But anyways, really, really trying to drive home that social aspect of the programs as well, and bringing in that whole school engagement piece as well. Advocacy and awareness. So this is, general assemblies, whole school engagement. We partnered with Motion Ball. If you're an educator on this call, you saw an email go out a couple weeks ago regarding this year's No Good Way campaign. So spreading the word to end the R word, really driving home the awareness of that word being a harmful word and how we need to eliminate it from our vocabulary. Social media campaigns. I know that schools are all about empowering their students to do things like announcements and run social media programs. So again, really incorporating Special Olympics content into those whole school engagement pieces. Again, the banner campaign, having students sign the No Good Way pledge. And then we always host a unified youth summit, which we did virtually this year in December, where we put it out to educators, students with and without intellectual disabilities, coming to those sessions. So sustainability, these things, again, I've been at competitions at schools where we've had bake sales going on alongside the competition to raise money for the school's Special Olympics program. We have tons of law enforcement torch run representatives that are very active in our school programs. We've had lots of schools participate in our polar plunges over the years, and that has been a successful way to raise funds for those local programs. School facilities. So this is something that tons of schools do when we come to a community to run a school event. The school generously donates their gym time for us to run that event. So that's just hosting, part and parcel of hosting an event. Connecting with community councils to ensure a pathway for transition. This is a huge piece for us in school programs. One of the hurdles we're continually trying to get over is making sure that those athletes, when they graduate from high school, are getting into those community programs when they're over 21. So some schools do this as transition nights where the community council comes in and presents what the local programs are. But any sort of pathway that can be grassroots and sort of developed by the educators and with the community council would be a way to tick this pillar off. Having a plan for sustainability of the program, committees, those clubs we mentioned earlier are great ways for that. So this is recognition level. This is just sort of our plan of recognizing, how many items. But again, this is up for this is just a draft idea, but more information will be coming out on this as we get towards the end of the summer. So with that concludes our presentation on unified programs and where they are now. I know there are a lot of volunteers from the community on this call wondering about unified programs and how they might be incorporated at a community level. That is something we haven't done yet on a wide scale at Special Olympics Ontario, aside from through partnership programs. But as we look to reboot our community programs, we can unified would be a great way to get those volunteers back into the community and help out with running basketball practices or whatnot. So are there any questions about unified programs in Special Olympics Ontario? We have a few minutes here, about 7 minutes for questions. No questions.
Hi, just a quick one.
Sure. Thanks, Amanda.
We keep track of this on our own, or is there going to be like I don't know, some sort of tracking sheet or something?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So it'll be a website. So we'll have a website with a form for you to submit what you've done. More
So like
form.
at the end of the year kind of thing?
Yeah, there'll be a deadline, like a submission deadline, and you'll put, the application together, what you've done. If you hosted basketball in Durham, you know, it'll be, yeah, plug and play.
Cool. Okay, thank you.
No problem, Amanda. Question here. Would unified programs be a way for communities to create partnerships even with non-traditional sports? Yeah, thanks for the question, Helena. That's a great one. So, for instance, I know we do have a partnership with pickleball, and they are definitely a unified program. But definitely a way to expand capacity and offerings for local communities. If there's a local club that offers a sport, Unified fits really well into that model there. So thanks for bringing that up, Helena. So yeah, non-traditional sports, definitely a great spot for Unified. Wondering about reaching out to Loyalist College in Belleville to introduce the idea. Is there support or document to support that? Yes, absolutely, Laura. So I believe you got my email in today to get this meeting link. So if you want to send me a quick email, I can definitely provide you with what we've used in the past. And yeah, it's definitely looking to get colleges and universities back on board for 2022, 2023. Any last questions before we go? I know Unified is definitely a newer thing for our community programs, but it's definitely something that we're looking to grow and support give our athletes more opportunities going forward. Okay.